All right, starting. 3, 2, 1. And we're live. Greetings and salutations. I'm Unvolf Neverborn, the abyss that slumbers, and you are listening to Eldritch Rants, the show that dares to ask the question, why haven't they making a music video to the song My Car is a Killing Machine and used video clips from all these Muslim truck of peace attacks? The answer to this question and many more will be answered by our panel of experts, including Kekistani Tranny, who will be the body double for that guy who was killed in the Fast and Furious movie, as well as Melissa Carley, who is going to be the main character of Speed Racer 2. Anyway, yeah, Speed Racer 2, The Search for More Money. Anyway, we're going to be starting off with an old topic at this point because we didn't get to tackle it next week. We missed it by like hours, which was Charlotte. I think at this point we could do kind of a summary about the whole thing real quick here, which is the guy may or may not be a white supremacist right-winger himself. His car may or may not have been hit with a baseball bat, and he may or may not have panicked and driven over a bunch of people. To be honest, I really am kind of sketchy about all the details. I don't know what you guys have heard, but, you know, driving over people is bad. You shouldn't do it unless you're going to die. But we're not sure if that was going to be the case either. So, thoughts on the topic?
Well, I mean, here's my thoughts on it, right? I'm a civic nationalist, so there's some things that the alt-right and I agree on, and there's a great deal of things that we disagree on. If this guy kind of just fucking panicked and just kind of drove into a crowd and then subsequently backed out of the crowd due to violence happening to his vehicle, I completely understand. Like, not so long ago, there was this, what do you call it, the BLM kidnapping. And I say that as so-called, right? Like, I understand that BLM didn't actually condone that in any kind of way, right? So, but to clarify what we're talking about is the BLM kidnapping, and what it was is this mentally ill guy was accosted by 4 black people that essentially terrorized and kicked the shit out of him. And he was mentally disabled, and he was obviously scared out of his mind. And not that I'm blaming him for being mentally disabled. Had I been in that situation, I probably would have been scared out of my fucking mind, right? But none of that withstanding, if this guy was in a situation where he was in his car, surrounded by leftists, and these leftists started assaulting his vehicle, and he took off, just trying to get away from them, and then ended up crashing into a crowd of people, which I think there is some evidence to suggest. Right before he came into the crash, you see his brake lights come on. So he tried to slow down and stop. How earnest that is, that's something up to the legal courts. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I don't pretend to understand a goddamn thing about law. But from the outside looking in, it looks like as he crashed into the vehicles, or crashed into the crowd, he tried to slow down, ultimately failed, and then once that failure took place, the vehicle became under assault by the protesters. When I say under assault, baseball bats, yada yada yada, he responded by backing out and running away from the situation. So, what's my personal, non-legal, legal perspective of it? From what I've seen, it looks like he rammed into the crowd, tried to stop, failed to do so, for whatever reason, and then the vehicle started getting the shit kicked out of him. He tried to get the hell out of there as soon as he can. So that means while backing out, he probably hurt a lot of people, which is unfortunate. But ultimately it was a response to a physical threat that he perceived. So I think on the backing out part, he'll be found not guilty. Feel free to disagree.
Keck, any thoughts?
The situation, it's sad, you know. I hate to see anybody injured over something as trivial as a political disagreement. However, call me a bad person for this, but I take this as an opportunity to point out a lot of the hypocrisy going on, such as whether it be the right ignoring this and pointing out how Antifa and such are also violent, or the left ignoring everything else and pointing out how this is terrible.
The only thing I want to comment additionally is, I don't know if people are familiar. I believe it's North Carolina. It might be South Carolina. One of those states. They passed a law making it legal for cars to drive over protesters in the street. So if you are a protester in the street in at least one state in the United States, it's okay to drive over you. That is actually, some people are like, oh, that's horrible, that's terrible. But there's a part of me going, you were in the street. This wasn't like he drove up on the curve. This was a group of people who decided to run out into the middle of traffic and jaywalk. They were all committing a crime. Now,
you were asking for it.
Accelerate and run over a bunch of people. Try not to kill people, certainly, but you kind of were trying to cause a disruption. Well, you succeeded. Did you think that you think that everybody could stop their car in time? Think everybody's maintained their brakes? I don't want to blame the victims here, but part of me is also along the lines of, don't go wandering out into traffic and you won't get hit. You know?
Well, I mean, I think there's a fine line between, what do you call it, blaming the victim and...
I blame the cops. I think we need to blame the cops.
And victim culpability, right? Like, what I mean by that is, if you're sporting a Rolex watch, a wallet full of cash, and driving a Bentley in the poorest neighborhoods of Los Angeles, right? Are you asking to get robbed? No. Are you encouraging such act? Yes. Right?
Yeah, that would be the point. They are encouraging vehicular problems.
Yeah, exactly.
And the cops encouraged it by walking away. You know,
well, and that's
to protect people, and they weren't.
That's the greatest fucking point. You brought up something that's critical to me. We are paying literally billions of dollars for a militaristic police force, right? When I say we Americans, right? We have the most advanced police force on the face of the fucking earth, outside of maybe North Korea, right? Why are we?
There's a difference between North Korea's police force and their army.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's there's differences, major differences between the philosophies, but the fact remains is that we're paying a shit ton for a fucking police force.
Well, in that case, the mayor. Maybe we can.
And here's where
the stand down.
Here's where we're fucking up. Here's what I want to see. The minute these Antifa fuckers and the neo-Nazis start fucking fighting, just send the police in, kick the shit out of all of them, and send them to jail. That's, where I come from, Colorado Springs, you fuck around with the police, you're going to catch an ass whooping, and you're going to go to jail. Right? Where the fuck were the police in Virginia? Why didn't Antifa and the neo-Nazis, or whoever the fuck was involved, catch an ass whooping and go to jail?
The mayor
like,
told them to stand down.
Yeah, that's the thing. The state is failing the populace. It is failing to put a stop to this nonsense, right? And as a voter, as a taxpayer, I pay them a lot of money to put a stop to the fucking nonsense, right? And regardless of what, end of the political spectrum you land on, right? This is 100% nonsense, right? Like, I don't care if you're Antifa, I don't care if you're a leftist or a rightist or a conservative or whoever. This was, at the end of the day, 100% nonsense. Why did the state fail to step in when it's its responsibility to step in? Like, it's not a matter of should the state step in or not. No, it is the responsibility of the state to step in, and it failed. Why did it fail? Why did the police not go in there with their fucking riot uniforms and kick the shit out of fucking everybody that so much raised a fucking finger and send them to jail? That's what they should have done, and that may have prevented this guy from fucking running into this fucking person, or that may have prevented Antifa from kicking the shit out of people, or that may have prevented the fucking neo-Nazis from kicking the shit out of everybody, right? Like, the state fucking failed.
Yep, no,
and they had ample opportunity to succeed.
Any rate, I think we kind of exhausted this topic, but, oh, by the way, just to partially answer your question, the mayor graduated from the University of Berkeley, just to let you know. And that place is just a hotbed of free speech advocates. Smell that? That's sarcasm. Any rate.
Yeah, let me jerk off in my own mouth for a fucking minute. Jesus Christ.
Moving on to other vehicular madness. We have the madness in Barcelona. Yet another car of peace, or is it truck of peace at this time? I forget. Was it a truck or a car of peace? You guys heard about Barcelona, right?
Yeah. I heard about Barcelona.
Yeah, I think last I checked, there was like 15 dead, etc., etc. They tried to do an explosion, gas main explosion, but they screwed that up somehow. Not a lot of people heard about that part, but yeah, they planned to start with an explosion, but they screwed it up. They got at least 9 people involved. They were going to combine vehicles and explosives to just mow down tourists. Oh, I'm sorry. The actual death toll was only 14. And they're trying to find everybody, but they screwed up the bomb construction, so it didn't go off right. And it originally was just written off as a household gas explosion. And then they did the rented van. But the rest of them were supposed to be going and mowing down a bunch of people, but they all seemed to either chicken out or screw up.
Wow. My favorite trend of 2017 is vehicular manslaughter.
You know what bothers me, though? When I was listening to NPR and I listened to them to torture myself, they were talking about how right-wing, the alt-right in America is responsible for 78% of terrorism, and Muslims are only responsible for 22 or 28%. And I'm sitting there and going, the only reason that they could do that is because, one, they start keeping track from, 9/12, not 9/11. And also they count every single solitary, punch. And they don't, include death toll. So, that's the crazy thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me, how NPR is trying to cover up terrorism, but they practically are.
This is leftist numbers 101. Whenever you hear about, right-wing terrorism's responsible for whatever fucking percent they come up with, it's literally whatever number they come up with, right? They always seem to exclude 9/11. Right? They almost always, right? I have yet to see one of these leftist figures that included 9/11. So, they'll say something like right-wing terrorism counted for 56 out of, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, but, 56 out of fucking 100 fucking terrorist attacks, right? But what they don't explain is,
no, it's just... Everything is
one of those Muslim terrorist attacks between 2000 and 2010 counts for 3,000 deaths. Another one of those, terrorist attacks, one counted for 60 or 56 deaths in fucking Orlando, right? I'll share this fucking pictorial I have with you. here in the Discord chat, but literally, left-wing extremists count for something like fucking 20% of all terrorist attacks in the entire fucking planet, right?
Oh yeah, their number one is Muslims. Number two is leftists.
Yeah,
like right wing is like some. They count every punch from somebody who is right wing as a terrorist attack.
And the right wing is third, but it's third in the sense that, like, if we were in a 100-meter race, first would be Islam in like fucking 20 seconds. Second would be the leftists in like fucking 13 seconds. And third would be like fucking the right wingers at like fucking 3 seconds, right? Like, that's literally how the math works out.
That's not how a race works, though.
I'm just hypothetical.
We get the point. We get the point.
Like, it's the distance between first, second, and third is way, like, there's a gap there to be noticed, right?
No, yeah. I mean, I believe the actual records are Muslim are like responsible for like 97%.
Yeah.
And like leftist is like not 3, it's like 2 point something. And then you've got like this small little fraction of like right wing political based, which include like oddly enough there's the Wahhabi Muslims, which are that subset of the Sunnis, and then there's the Shiites. The Shiites, they do terrorism too, but it's all political based. You know, they blow people up for an ideology, not because, you know, God told them to. They're trying to free, like, Palestine, you know, so there's a political solution there. You can't reason with somebody who's decided to kill you because their imaginary Skybeard has told them to do so. You know, so. But that's the case here. But then we got this, and people want, my problem is the whole writing it off. It's like by the numbers. Like, oh, they make up some imaginary statistics to make it not look as bad. They hide the guy's name. We finally hear it, and yes, he's definitely a foreigner. There's nothing Spanish about his name.
Eldridge, is there a link to the live chat? I don't mean it. I'm sorry.
I can find it.
Please. No, I love engaging with viewers, so.
I think that's it. Or at least that's the pop out.
I can't see it. Am I missing something?
Hey, Buttercup.
Am I missing something? Can you post in the general chat?
Oh, I put it in live stream.
Aldridge?
There,
Thank you.
I put it in general too.
Thank you so much. Perfect. No, I mean, sometimes the viewers have an important question. It's cool to answer it, so. And Keki knows me. I have some very strong opinions, so.
I just responded to chat myself. At any rate, I don't think there's much to go over this other than it's, you know, second verse, same as the first. It's exactly the same as the last terrorist attack and the terrorist attack before that. Terrorist attack before that. Bunch of people get killed. Bunch of people in charge of the government say if we give in, the terrorists will have won. Multiculturalism is good. You know, right-wing nationalism is bad. Right-wing nationalisms are worse than all the people who just got killed. And let's move on to the next tragedy. Nothing to see here.
Well, and that's exactly my problem. Like, I am a right-wing nationalist. I am not a white nationalist. I am a civic nationalist, right? And this idea that immigration is good for everybody is fucking bullshit, right? Like, and you don't need to be going to school for business to understand this. You don't need to, you know, have a PhD in macroeconomics to understand this kind of business, right? Like, something like 94% of immigrants that come in the United States don't have a high school education to the standard of the United States, which, by the way, is a pretty fucking low standard to have, right?
Oh yeah, we are the easiest country to get into immigration-wise. Try to go to any other country, and you'll be like, I believe, most of them are 7 years.
Yeah,
The average.
and
is
I mean,
6 to 7
like,
years.
I've looked into immigrating to the UK, and do you know, if I were to want to immigrate to the UK as an American, I would have to make £30,000 a year, not $30,000 a year, £30,000 a year for 3 years, and not once touch qualify to put my foot in the door, right? And this is coming from the same country that if you're from Morocco and you're a refugee, you're basically given a free fucking pass, right? And you know, and this is something the leftists are trying to push in the United States, right? Fortunately, they haven't been able to get it through Congress, but this idea that you could bring in just all these fucking poor people who don't have shit for skills, who don't know how to fucking speak English, that don't know how to fucking whatever, right? That can mold into American society is completely horseshit, right?
Well, Trump wants to change it, but I don't know if the bill's going to get passed.
And Trump, I have a lot of fucking problems with. But overall, I like the guy, right? And yes, the United States is now in a position where it needs to cut legal immigration. Fuck illegal immigration. Like, send all of them back. I don't care who they are. Oh, my grandma has been in the country for fucking 56 years. Sucks to be her. Send her back. Like, why is it so bad? Why is it considered evil for these people to live with their own countrymen? Like, it doesn't make fucking sense to me. Why is that evil? I don't get it.
It's a moral panic that we're in.
But, like, I don't get it. Like, oh, you're a Mexican. I'm going to make you go live with other Mexicans. Like, why is that evil? I don't get it. Is Mexico
it's
such a shit fucking place to live?
It's
That
because
it's
they're
evil
told
to
their whole
send
lives
back
that humanity's evil, America's especially evil, and that the only way that you can help poor people is to tear better people down. That's the summary. If you believe
but
that
see what
life
I'm
needs to
getting
be
at? Like-
fair, then you will tear down people who have succeeded in the beliefs that it'll help people who didn't. Or my theory is, why don't we just help everybody up?
Like you feel what I'm boiling on here? Like, I'm fine with legal, like, by and large, I'm fine with legal immigration. Like, okay, you want to live here and you want to work and yada yada yada. Okay, fine. My problem is, why is it so bad to send illegal immigrants? And I don't buy that undocumented bullshit. Like, the minute you come out with me undocumented, I'm like, no, nigger, you got it wrong. It's called fucking illegal immigrant. Like, get away from me with that undocumented shit, right? I don't buy into it. I'm not going to use your fucking rhetoric. Fuck off, right?
Indeed.
Why is it so bad that I am making illegal Mexicans go live with fucking Mexicans? I don't get it.
Because you're racist against a country that isn't a race.
Exactly.
I love that. You're racist because you hate Mexicans. You know there's black Mexicans too, right? You know there's white Mexicans. You know there's all sorts of, there's a whole bunch of races over there.
Mexico as a nation is every bit as diverse as the United States is. In
some ways they're more. In some ways they're much more diverse than us.
Yeah, and in some ways
our
it's much
country
more. Mexico is a very diverse place, culturally, ethnically, and racially, right? Like, it's a very diverse fucking place.
And it's not doing
right?
so hot, so that's proof right
I
there.
mean, like, deporting their asses back to Mexico, not only, like, here's the deal, right? If you're one of those people that thinks immigration is great. You should be against illegal immigration because illegal immigration hurts legal immigrants.
Oh, it hurts legal immigrants. It hurts poor people. I
Yeah, and it
don't know
hurts.
Black Lives Matter is so pro-immigration. It's like if you were pro-Black Lives, you'd be so anti-immigration.
Exactly.
I don't
Like-
get it too. I'm pro-Black Lives, but not pro-Black Lives Matter. Like I am all for helping people whose lives suck. It's my job. It's what I do. But I know one thing: if I increase the labor pool, I hurt those people who are on the bottom end.
Dude, you're speaking my language. Like, here's the thing. It's supply and demand economics. To be pro-immigration and pro-illegal immigration is a pro-corporatist stance. You cannot disconnect these things. If you're like, oh, just erase borders, blah, 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 congratulations, you've just taken a pro-corporatist stance. By definition, with my anti-illegal immigration, my anti-immigration stance, I am anti-corporatist. By definition. Because immigration is a wonderful way to transfer wealth from the lower class to the upper class. Because the more labor there is available at the lower class, the less wages have to increase. The less demand there is. Yada, yada, yada. Right? The smaller the labor pool, the more the wages go up. And like we see small scale examples of this. There was a chicken factory not that long ago that got raided by ICE. I think it happened in 2007. It got raided by ICE. Over 75% of its workforce got deported.
How terrible
they
of
had-
ICE to deport all those poor, hard-working chicken farmers.
So the company had to employ new workers, and it increased its wage offerings by 73%. Overnight, bam. We need workers, right? Chickens don't kill themselves. We have to kill them, right?
No, I'm with you 100%. All it does is hurt the people who are the poorest.
Yeah, and
It helps
that's-
rich people, it hurts poor people, and then you've got all these people who are really rich running around going, but you are so racist. You don't dare.
And that's what it is. It's upper and middle class fucking morality that poor people have to pay for. And I am, by definition, upper middle class. And I am sick and tired of watching poor people who are trying to get through their fucking lives pay for the morality of the upper and middle class. Like, fuck your morality.
Well,
Why
let's be fair here. We're actually talking about the morality of West Coast and New York City. And don't count all of New York State on this. Trust me, as soon as you get north of Ypsilanti, you can pretty much count on it switching back to being Republican. We're Republican in Central New York.
But when you listen to these fucking dickheads that are talking about open immigration and let's bring all the illegals we can fit into one fucking boat at a time, right? They're generally white, upper middle class fucking shit stains, right? That never had to deal with being fucking poor, right? Like,
I think that's the difference. I had to live out of my car for a couple of weeks there.
I mean,
I know what it's
middle
like
class.
to have no home, so I know what it's like to be on the bottom end. I clawed to where I am currently.
I mean, I'm middle class now, but I spent my time on the streets, right? I spent my time fucking selling pot to just get something to fucking eat. Like, I've been there, right? I've been there. It fucking sucks. There's nothing fucking glorious about it, right? And I am tired of seeing poor people pay for the morality of the middle class. It's bullshit. None of these poor people asked for illegal immigration. They never asked for immigration, period. Right? Why should they have to suffer for the morality of the middle class? It's completely bullshit. There's no justification for it. And I think, I think a lot of it is, the reason I defend it is because I was, fucking destitute. I was the poor fucking tranny, right? I was the poor fucking tranny making fucking, you know what I mean? Like, doing the webcam skits. So this way I can fucking make $1 or $2, right? I've been there, done that. I know what it's like to be poor. I know the amount of suck that goes into being poor.
Hey, Keck, you got any comments? I haven't given you a chance to get a word in.
Oh, sorry, I've been rambling on.
Yeah.
Or are we just preaching to the choir?
You're preaching to the choir.
All right, let's move on to a few other random topics here. You want to do with neo-Nazis, black power, or a man posing his wife on Craigslist?
Well, if you go on the neo-Nazis, I will...
Well, let's tackle the neo-Nazi topic. Hold on one second.
Well, I say I probably will fucking command the conversation. Like, I have a great deal of problems with the ethno-nationalist point of view.
Well, actually, I have an interesting take on this. In Germany, neo-Nazis are allowed to march, but any sort of threats are not allowed. What they mean is that you're only allowed like one banner or sign for every 50 people who show up. They probably only expect to have about 500 people in their march. They're allowed to march in Berlin. They're not allowed to glorify any Nazis. No military music is allowed. So basically, it's a march that's so neutered it's not funny. I'm sorry, you had something to say?
I don't mean to cut you off, but something came up. I have to handle it. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. No problem. I'm going to ramble for a bit anyways.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Any rate, basically, there's going to be about 1,000 people minimum as a counter protest, and knowing Antifa in Europe, it's going to be actually pretty bad. I mean, they're giving them plenty of time to rally, and the last time they had plenty of time to rally, they managed to scrounge up 5,000 people, and they made a city burn. So, but I think what is important here is the fact that it's even being allowed at all, because Germany is notorious for arresting people when they even do like Nazi salutes in front of, important civic buildings. The fact that this is even getting out there leads me to believe something that I've been suspecting for a while, that Germany's government is all about appeasement, which is the reason why the left has been getting away with so much shit. And now they're just continuing their appeasement, which in this case, they are appeasing right-wing extremists. And the problem is when you appease right-wingist extremists and left-wing extremists, sooner or later, those extremists are going to beat the crap out of each other. In fact, that's what they're expecting. According to the article here, is they're expecting there to actually be bloody street violence in this case. And it's because the German police are, probably not going to intervene. They're simply not going to intervene, and that's the problem here. And I think this is only the beginning, because since they're all about appeasement, they're going to start backing down whenever any group of really violent people get together, because they've seen it work with the other violent groups. If you allow Antifa to get away with crap, you're thinking, oh, we're letting Antifa do what we need to do and to punch these Nazis. The problem is it's not going to work. Nazis are not going to be intimidated by you unleashing Antifa on them, considering Antifa is 97% basement-dwelling people who live with their parents. What you're just telling the Nazis is if you could just get enough people together who will be really violent, we will let you get away with shit. And that's how you get fascism. These left-wing extremists think they're chasing off all these bash the fash bullshit. It's not the case. What they're doing is encouraging fascism. They're saying fascism, what we get away with, you can get away with if you just have the manpower. And trust me, people are a lot more likely to rally around a nationalistic cause than they ever would rally around globalism. Globalism is for people who are, as Gailey said, middle-class white people with guilt. That is not a revolution. Okay, your revolution is not going to work. Not if you're going to base it off of kids who live at home with their parents and middle-class guilty people. Because the right-wing extremists, I said this on another video and I'm going to repeat it here. When I'm told that a black person isn't racist, they go, prejudice plus institutional power is what causes racism. But who would give up power to create more racism? Because if you reverse that equation, institutional power is equal to racism minus prejudice. Does that make sense? That if you take prejudice away from racism, you get power? No. The case is you have prejudice. Everybody has some prejudice. But that's not racism. Prejudice is prejudgment. It's where you anticipate situations and you try to take your best guess. If you don't apply it to individuals, that leads to racism. But as long as you can prejudge anybody, as long as when you meet them face to face, you take them as an individual. But if people have prejudice and I'm willing to act racist, I can manipulate your prejudices. And I can turn power out of that situation. And that's what happens. If the governments do not stand up to these extremists and let them get away with crap thinking, oh, these extremists are on my side, I don't have to worry about them. Guess what? You're just telling the other side, your only problem isn't that you have the bad message, it's that you don't have enough people. And that's how you have civil wars. That's how you have what happened in Italy for, I forget, 1960 to 1980, which founded the Antifa movement. All of those people getting killed were both fascists and commies going at each other. Do you want that in America? Well, then you need to start telling your police force, don't stand down, beat the crap out of both sides and tell them we like it boring around here. But that's just me. Any comments? I think, what's her name's back.
All right, there we go.
Hey!
Sorry. No, I
better than you
agree.
Is your microphone working?
Yeah, it should be working.
No, I'm talking about the new guy.
Hang on.
Oh,
Can you
there he
hear me?
is! Hey, I'm better than you is.
Fuck me, this worked. Whew. All right.
I've been trying to get you on the Discord forever.
But if we're gonna pay all this money for a fucking militarized police force, I completely agree. Send them in, have them kick the shit out of both sides, haul whoever off needs to go to jail to go to jail, and handle it. Like, to me, what happened in Charlottesville is a lack of police, like, fucking presence, right? Like, your main job as a police officer, in my opinion, is to keep the fucking peace, right? And for the many disagreements I have with the alt-right and white nationalists and ethno-nationalists, they have the right to demonstrate. Like,
Hey, Melissa.
Oh yeah, I'm all for their right to free speech. It's when it turns violent. Your rights end at my nose.
Well, so
but here's where shit got fucked up, right? The alt-right, or whatever you want to call it, had the permit to fucking demonstrate whatever it is they wanted to demonstrate.
Hang on a tick.
Well,
He's actually what's happened from a different point of view, right? You got all these young people who think they're all that in a bag of chips running around causing shit, right? And what the police knew was that these cunts were going to be too much trouble for them to deal with. So they knew that other upstanding individuals, like you got these militia groups and all this, were finally going to get the shits and then just take these little pricks and beat the crap out of them. And that's exactly what happened in the second battle of fucking Berkeley. And that's exactly what they're doing now. The cops are just standing back, just saying, right, well, you dumb cunts want to, make yourselves out to be idiots. Well, then you're going to get your heads kicked in by people who can kick your head in.
That does raise a question. Do you think Antifa is going to get stronger or weaker because a car drove over 20 of them?
No, it's going to be a movement. Like I've made analogies with this before, like what happened back in the '60s with the Weather Underground and the Symbionese Liberation Army and all this. It's a movement. It'll go a certain distance and then it'll peter out. But in the meantime, we are going to have stupid people do really fucking stupid things.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the long run, you're going to see a bit of an upsurge. But I'm hoping that what you're also going to see is a whole bunch of normal people who've been going to the Antifa because their boyfriend or girlfriend was going, and is going to go, I don't want to hang out at a place where I can get killed.
Yeah, but on the flip side, though, you will get the one or two which will pick up a gun and have a bit of a pray and spray or send bombs through the mail. Like, it's been done before.
Yeah, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, but I think we're going to start to weed out the wimps, the people who are just there for show and tell, and the people who are like actually true believers. So I think the groups are going to get smaller, but they're going to get more serious.
Yeah, and the sympathy for them will drastically drop too. Once they do start doing this stupid shit, people are just going to go, yeah, nah, fuck these cunts. Sorry about the saying the C word every fucking second word too. That's just me being Aussie.
Nah, Melissa's been cursing up a storm as it is. It's cool.
Fucking groovy. I mean,
like, I'm inclined to listen to the quote-unquote thinkers of the alt-right, right?
Mm.
Oh, listen to anyone.
I think these guys got a point, right? The more violent and the more obtuse Antifa gets, I think they're right in their summation that the more their ranks will grow. And I think the proof is in the pudding.
Well, the funniest thing to me is that they're carrying...
5 years ago, I just want to finish my thought, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Five years ago, we weren't talking about the alt-right. We weren't even talking about neo-Nazis. We weren't talking about shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, what's on the tip of everybody's tongue? The alt-right, right? And Richard Spencer...
Moral panic.
And Richard Spencer is, for lack of a better word, the poster boy for the alt-right. Richard Spencer is 39 years old. While he doesn't fall into the technical definition of a millennial, he's a breath away from being a millennial.
Yeah, right.
And the alt-right is, by right, a young movement. It's filled with millennial white men. And I think there's something in that that's being missed by the wider public. Why are millennial white men going toward the bosom of National Socialism?
Because their parents grew up not chastising them. That's why they don't know right from wrong.
No, it's not fucking parents.
No one's ever like told them that they've been in trouble before, and that's where you do see this with this lot. They go up to the coppers and say, "Don't you fucking arrest that guy," as if they've got some authority over the situation. And it simply is. They should have been bent over some bastard's knee once in their life and given, two of the best and say, "Right, fuck off back to your room."
I do have to echo that, but I have to say it's not just the parents. It's also because I deal with a lot of people who are trying to get their GEDs and stuff. The schools here are shit too. The high schools, the colleges, they coddle these people. They give them no real life skills, and then they throw them out into the real world, and then they just flounder. They just can't survive.
Yeah, well, they can't chastise them either. And it even in Australia, when they banned the cane in schools, the instant they did that, I thought it's going to take, the bad kid exactly a split second to realise they've got no power, and it's going to be, don't do this, little Johnny, or else, and then the kid's going to go, or else fucking what? And then the teacher had nothing to do, no leg to stand on. That's exactly what happened.
Well, I do want to, Rob, there's a few other topics I want to tackle. Any last thoughts on this? Because I want to get to the terrorist attack nobody's talking about.
Well, I just laugh at all these little Antifa monkeys, They have got absolutely no idea of the real world, and if they took a walk in my world for 5 minutes, they'd completely shit themselves and be comatose for the rest of their lives, and it's funny.
And the only thing I would add to the conversation is I don't even think it's fair to blame parents. Like, this is a sickness of the modern era. I mean, we have BuzzFeed pumping out articles like, 12 things white people have ruined. 21 things white people, or 21 foods white people have fucked up, right? Why your white privilege makes you a fucking asshole, yada yada yada, right? This is not the fault of parents. Parents don't write fucking news articles, right? And the parents that are writing the news articles, like, there's this feminist bitch who got on a fucking public stage on fucking like Washington News or Washington Post, right? And called her own sons, her own fucking sons, as part of the problem of rape culture. Jesus fucking Christ. And then these same leftist idiots will run around and wonder why there are so many millennial men that are white nationalists. Holy shit. Do I need a bigger fucking lightning rock? Do I need a bigger fucking reason? Do I?
I'm absolutely of the opinion, bring back conscription. Make them grow a set of balls while they're young.
Well, yeah, there is some reason to believe that, if you spent 2 years in the armed forces as requirement for citizenship for every American, we'd have a lot less fat people. And,
not so much the Starship Troopers version of it, but yeah, you do look at places like Sweden and all that. They've got great employment records. They've got very, very low crime records. They're very, very civic minded, and they all have to do some military service.
Actually, funny you should bring that up because that's the next topic. That's a good lead in. We're going.
They also have very, very high taxes.
Well, let's head over to Finland briefly. Finland police shoot man who stabbed 8 people, 2 dead in Helsinki.
Don't fuck with the Finn.
Yeah, a man stabbed 8 people in Finland's western city of Turku, killing 2 of them before police shot him and detained him. He is a youngish man with a foreign background. However, they aren't sure if he's a, foreign national, just of a foreign background, and they didn't give any information on him, and nothing is known about the motives or precisely what happened.
Well, 2 things I'd say. One, they're trying to make sure that they got their facts correct, or secondly, this might actually be a part of this European censorship that started before the mass rape of Cologne. They might not want to admit it.
I'm thinking it's more along the lines of the second from looking at this. Finland wasn't doing too bad when you look at the terrorist attacks, but they didn't take in nearly as many refugees as any other country. So that was kind of the reason why they weren't having terrorist attacks. But yeah, I think we're just seeing the same thing that we're seeing over in Sweden and all the other European countries that have basically strangled themselves.
Oh yeah, and any Europeans out there, fucking sorry guys, that bloody mass immigration thing was our fault. We stopped the bloody boats here, and then the next day they were straight across the Med. Sorry guys.
No, well, yeah, you were perfectly justified in stopping them in Australia. But, God, it's just a freaking mess. It's just a freaking mess. And if you look at it, I consider it a canary in the coal mine kind of situation where it's like, we need more immigrants over here in America. No, I'm looking at countries that have a 10% of their population replaced with immigrants, and their countries have turned into shitholes.
Well, it's a thing with the Labor Party in Australia. They love foreigners because when the foreigners come here, they'll give them all these perks and all this kind of stuff. So that next election, vote for me. And that's what the Labor Party was doing with all these votes. They were literally fucking letting them in. They even were giving the people smugglers a mobile phone number to I think it was Land Headquarters 2nd Military District, which is in Sydney, so as they could ring them and say, "Hello, Australian Navy, we're about 300 nautical miles north of so and so. Can you come pick us up?" They were doing that.
Do you think the European governments are that are that? What's the word I'm looking for?
Europe's never really been very good in a tactical situation. You know, just look at how many times Eastern Europe or Western Europe, sorry, has been involved in a major scale war or been overrun at certain periods of time. And they have always been the last to realise. They're always the ones that have the open borders. They let all the bad people in, and when things go wrong, it's far too late. They've always been like that.
I'm gonna.
Well, what I'm saying is, do you think the European governments are actually that contemplative?
Well, they're initially scared shitless by the whole. You know, you've got to be seen to be nice. These are refugees, and until otherwise shown, they are poor, hard done bys. The problem was that you had only males of fighting age. There was very, very little children or women in this massive group, and it was very obvious that this was more of an invasion as opposed to an immigration. I mean, like, my point of view with these guys is they're all males of fighting age escaping a war. Pick up a fucking gun and defend your fucking home. Be a fucking man. Don't run away and leave your wives and children behind. Nah, but this is like with Angela Merkel. She was back in the Munich Olympics side of things. The reason why the Munich Olympics had their terrorist attack was because they were too scared of the stigma of World War II, ruthless Nazi efficiency and all this kind of stuff. So they even relaxed it to the stage that no guards had any guns. The police couldn't get involved. The military couldn't get involved. And the closest thing they could get to actually rectify this situation was border guards. For some bizarre reason, they didn't even have a SWAT team back then. GSG-9 was actually made because of the Munich Olympics, and they've got that same attitude now. We can't be seen to be the ruthless, efficient Germans that people, and any person saying, yes, we should bring back our grandfathers for this, they're being shut down by saying you're being nasty to these people, when these people are actually being nasty of all of these people. And, you know, fucking... with the rape of Cologne, for example, I mean, like, the way that they tried to silence that was fucking criminal, and it almost is the case where I'm absolutely positive Merkel's only letting all of these fucking rapists in so she might get her end away once in her fucking life. Yeah, that's... Yeah,
I don't mean to sound presumptive, but I take it that you're pro-Brexit?
Well... I don't really have a horse in the race, but technically being in the Commonwealth and an Australian, I am part of England, and what happens to them does affect me. And yes, I do believe they should be separate from the European Union, just on a tactical and a strategic situation, not so much an economical one.
Let me rephrase that question, because I knew you're from Australia. I was just asking a question. Do you think Brexit would benefit or hurt Australia in the long run?
It honestly really wouldn't make much of a difference to Australia, but a stronger England in a stronger Commonwealth is always a benefit to those in the Commonwealth itself. So it's not just Australia, but Canada and the other colonies.
So but Brexit is a positive or a negative force for the Commonwealth?
It is a positive for the simple reason that it ensures that our head of state is an independent head of state. What Merkel wanted to try and do, now this is a scary part, was that she wanted a singular European government, and she wanted the military to be controlled by the singular European government. So you don't have the Yugoslav army.
Ahead of that, no less.
Yeah, and they wanted to run it from Germany. So effectively, they were basically taking the entirety of Europe, like they did in World War I and World War II, but this time just without firing a shot. And this way, they wanted to try and get the ultimate goal, which has always been England. So yeah, that part of it scared me. You know, the Germans want a unified Europe, and they want a unified army controlled by Germany. This just sounds like World War II without any shots fired. So
I mean, that's largely the American point of view. Like, Americans have always been very skeptical of what goes on in Europe, right? Both today and traditionally. I mean, in World War II, people were like, "Oh, America didn't show up until 3 years before the war started." And,
well, that's actually a big misnomer, because earlier on we were in the Pacific and
true. What's missed is the context. Why didn't the United States get into World War II as soon as it started? And
Because it didn't really affect you guys at the time.
Americans viewed World War II before Pearl Harbor as a European Civil
European
War.
problem.
Like, Europe created Nazi Germany. It was Europe's problem to fucking fix. We don't give a fuck what happens in Europe, right? Because Americans had a bad taste in their mouths from World War I.
Yeah, and
which
they're
was
also an isolationist country as well.
European Civil War. Like, so from the American point of view, what goes on in Europe is not America's fucking problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's actually a healthy way to look at it. And it's unfortunate, and I know this is a massively unpopular opinion, but I really wish the United States had not gotten involved in the European front. I really do. I fucking can't stand it. Because...
Well, actually, can I interject for a second?
And the reason is, we set ourselves up to be the military hegemony after World War II. And with that came a fuck ton of responsibility from the actual American citizen.
Yep.
Right? And all of a sudden, we had to be the military hegemony. We had to have 12 aircraft carriers, or 13 aircraft carriers, or 15 aircraft carriers at $7 billion a piece and run $1 million a day for 365 days a year. And we had to have this fucking massive fucking military network, right? Whereas if we just stayed the fuck out of Europe and let Europe do what Europe does, like fuck y'all, right? You created, and here's the fucking thing that pisses me off about Europe. Europe created the Nazis. It was their fucking fault, right? 100%. The United States didn't have shit to do with it, right?
Actually, before you get too further, let me interject something just so we have this in proper context. If America hadn't got involved in World War I, we never would have had that massive one-sided crushing of Germany. There wouldn't have been the massive German debt the Germans had to pay back, and there never would have been Nazis. If America had just stayed out of World War I, we would have probably prevented World War II. So if you want to take this back, let's go all the way back to World War I.
And I'm fine with that.
We should have stayed out.
Okay. Here's an opposite point of view for that.
World War I.
Let's give my ma'am a chance to speak. 1 second.
Sure.
Here's an opposite point of view on that. See, like I'm usually a pessimist, but fucking I usually see the good sides in everything. Now, if it wasn't for World War II and the rise of the Nazi Party, we would be 30 years behind in aviation technology. We wouldn't have helicopters to the stage that we are now. So if you ever need to be chopped at the hospital, you can actually thank the Nazis for that. Jet engines, the axial flow engine, jet engine, that's still being used today on basically every aircraft ever built. There's the space race, for example. Wernher von Braun, if he wasn't given...
war is good for innovation. That is true.
Yeah, and like 30 years of in advance of medical technology and all this kind of stuff. So in hindsight, when you look at things, yeah, it was a shitty way to get there, but like I'd actually rather that it happened way back then and we'd learnt what we've got now. And like even speaking to each other right now, if it wasn't for the Nazis, we probably wouldn't be doing this for another 20 or 30 years. I'm not fucking standing up for them, of course not, but fucking you've got to, sort of, like I said, you got to learn where you come from.
Yeah, you need to I mean, you have to be honest about the results. So.
And after all, I mean, like, Hitler, he cops a lot of fucking shit for the stuff that he did, but, like, when all said and done, he wasn't really that much of a bad bloke, because after all, he did kill Hitler.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, one other thing that I wanted to bring up from a while ago that Randy brought up, Randy Raccoon, and he had a good point here. I think a lot of this that we can stem that's going on right now culturally, what's causing a lot of this craziness, is feminism. Basically, feminism has declared men evil, and as such, men are not really allowed to be as, protectors. That's kind of what your job is. When you're
feminism
man,
doesn't really...
You're the guy who runs into the fire, and the woman is the one who stays outside and screeches. That's the way it's expected. Women and children first. Got it.
Feminists don't really bother me because they're never in my world.
Yeah, when you take that away, when you take away the clear-cut roles, yeah, you start getting more men hooking up with, Antifa because, well, that's how you get laid. Let's be honest here. You're a young man, and there's all these young idealistic women with all this feminism in their head doing all this Marxist bullshit. Yes, you're going to join up. Because
I don't view feminism as the enemy as much as part of the problem.
Oh, no, it's part of the problem. It's not the enemy, clearly. I mean, it's just poor thinking. To be honest here, if you got rid of Marxist feminists and kept all other forms of feminists, I'd be okay. It's the Marxist feminists I have a problem. The problem is they're all Marxist feminists now.
Who ultimately benefited from women entering the workforce? Who ultimately benefited? It wasn't the family. Who ultimately benefited?
Oh, rich guys. Rich guys. I mean, it's clear.
Exactly. The corporate class. The corporate class loved the idea of women entering the workforce, right? Because that lowered the demand for labor, which allowed them to stagnate wages and everything else. It is no surprise that the liberation of women, quote unquote, also coincides with the stagnation of wages.
It also depends on the industry as well. I mean, as a truck driver, we did have some female drivers come through, and thankfully they were really cool. But there was always that you got to tread on eggshells around them. You got to watch your language and all this kind of stuff. And there was one lady there, Kate. She was a trailer driver, a semi-trailer driver, right? And you go up, we treat her just like another bloke. Like she'd be opening up the curtains on the truck, and you'd help her unclip it, and then pull the curtain back, and you'd help her take her gates off, just like you'd do a normal driver. And I'd be there telling her a dirty joke or something like that, and one of the supervisors would come up and say, "What's your language around the females?" And she told him to fuck off. So it does depend on the industry. We don't particularly like females in the transport industry because of physical attributes and the whole walking on eggshells kind of thing. And back in the army, there was a lot of this
Like, what I'm talking about...
before we get any further...
What I'm talking about is not the number, or like the politically correct bullshit. I am talking about strictly the numbers, right? Let's say you started off in Australia with 25,000 truck drivers. I'm pulling this number completely out of my ass, right? 25,000 truck drivers, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, women enter the workforce. Now there's 10,000 more truck drivers in the workforce. What effectively has happened in that transition is there's more labor, which lowers the demand for said labor. So what you end up with is lower wages because there's less demand. It's supply and demand economics.
You kind of picked a really crappy example of that. Sorry for my language, but because the transport industry is an ever-growing business, and we're actually in a massive detriment of drivers because of health ailments, growing too old, they lose their license.
I understand. It's the same way in the United States.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
In the United States, where it's going to cost you more to see your plumber than it is your doctor, right?
Yeah.
But it was just.
But you might have been paid more money if they didn't have feminism.
It was what I was trying to get at is just by the numbers example, right?
Mm.
And by the numbers example, by putting women in the workforce, in a lot of ways, forcing women into the workforce, you've increased the supply of labor, but the demand for jobs really hasn't gone up as a whole, right? So what happens, right? The women's liberation happened in the 60s, came to fruition in the 70s. Wablam. What also hasn't gone up since the 1970s? Fucking wages, at least in the United States, right? And this is on average, right? Between all industries. And essentially what the women's liberation has done is give rise to the corporate liberation, right? They don't have to depend on male labor anymore. They got female labor now. And they got illegal immigrant labor now. And they got legal immigrant labor now. And yada, yada, yada. So what has happened is the labor market is absolutely flooded with workers. And surprise, surprise, wages have stagnated since the 1970s. I mean, it's what? Fucking 1970s, 1980s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000, 2010s. 40 years, wages have been stagnated, right?
Yep, we got that. Anyway.
And in the meantime, you look at what has actually happened as well. You got China that's been on the rise, and they're buying up businesses and all this. You know, you can make Nike sneakers over there for 10 cents a pop as opposed to $3.50 over in America. And it's part of America shooting themselves in the foot, where they've tried to downscale a lot of their companies by you know, reducing their costs, but you know, improving their profits, and it's fucked you guys over.
Oh no, you're speaking my language. Like, I am an American nationalist, and I make no fucking pretension that I give a shit about the rest of the world. Right? I don't. Heavy trade tariffs across the fucking board. Especially for currency manipulators like fucking China. Like, there was a lot of problems with the American auto manufacturing in the late 1960s, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems, and they had existed. But
and it got worse in the 70s with the oil prices and shit.
But in the 1970s, two things happened that literally killed American auto manufacturing, right? One, the oil crisis of the 1970s, and two, Nixon agreeing with China to dump Chinese steel into the United States, which killed the American steel market.
There was a third one. There was a third one too, and that was the rise of the Japanese economic small car thing.
Well, and that played later in the 1980s.
Yeah, but it was a part of it though. And throughout the 1970s, American car manufacturers were pumping out all these cars with small engines, trying to keep up with the fucking oil crisis, right? But that was doubled with the problem of Chinese steel being dumped in the market. So these auto manufacturers were forced to buy from Chinese fucking steel manufacturers. And what had happened was, Japan was doing the same thing. They were buying fucking steel from Chinese. And there was no fucking way in the 1970s that you were an American auto manufacturer and you were able to build cars in the United States. There was no fucking way. And guess what happened? Lo and behold, they lost a bunch of fucking money. And in 1979, the first auto bailout happened. Right? Yeah.
And then...
Well, before we drag onto this too much, there's something that I wanted to tackle since we got Farty on. We talked about this last week, and I wanted to get this in before we run out of time here.
Sure.
Farty, do you remember, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but currently your country is no longer recruiting men for your armed forces. I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Oh, you're talking to him. I was like...
to him. Yeah.
Right.
I wanted his opinion from Australia.
How fucking dark do you want to get?
Dark as possible, because we really ripped into it last week.
Rightio. Stupid fuckwit dumb cunt feminists, I fucking believe, have a rape fetish for the simple reason they're trying to get into an industry where we are actually going to war with a group of people who have absolutely no fucking care for female rights and all this kind of stuff. Now, if God forbid, and this hasn't ever happened yet in the Australian Army because we look after our own, we never leave a bloke behind. Actually, I've just shot myself in the fucking foot there. Yeah, we did this quite a lot during World War I, but that was a bit fucking explainable. Now, if one of these bloody Sheilas gets caught by fucking ISIS, what do they expect to happen to them? Do they expect the fucking Geneva Convention? Oh, fuck no. No, they're going to get fucking head down, bum up, fucking poked in the asshole until they're either full of cum and burst or they commit suicide. And I've seen the aftermath of fucking... I've seen the aftermath of bush marriages and fucking bushwives and all this shit in Africa, where fucking cunts just come in, they just grab Sheilas, and then, yeah, you never see them again, but you know they died horribly, right? Fucking these idiots in think that, like, oh, it's going to be like the movies and shit. They're going to go off to war and blah, 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 and, it's going to be like, they'll come back with medals and shit, but it's horrific. There's fucking gory shit. I lose sleep over all the stuff that I've fucking seen on a nightly fucking basis, right? Fucking, we should.
I'm with you 100%. It's like freaking insane.
Oh, good. You silly. You went silent for a second there. But like, no, like the shit that you fucking see, even in a peacekeeping operation, is fucking horrific. And these idiots want to go and do that? No, just no. The fucking reason why I'm here is so as they don't fucking have to do that. You know, and this like getting a female quota in the army bullshit is counterproductive to the tactical situation with Australia anyway, because we really do need more fucking blokes that were like me, and they will find that they won't get the quota that they want. Because, like with most other industries, you open it up to females and they simply don't really want to do it. But to turn back people who would be effective soldiers, who would be very competent officers and stuff like that, just because we've got to give a leg up to somebody who needs the leg up, just so as they can show that they might have the same abilities, why don't you just go and join up like normal and show that they've got the abilities like they've been doing for 30 or 40 odd years in Australia? And like that's my opinion with all females in all industries. I don't give a fuck that you're a female. I don't care if you got tits and a twat. I don't really give a shit if you look pretty. Shut the fuck up. Do your fucking job like the rest of us, and I'll respect you.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately affirmative action actually winds up hurting women more than it helps. Like it gets them into the jobs, but then can you do the job? Or, you know, and this is a job where you die. That's the part that gets me. They're
No, I was listening. Women. Sorry, I muted my microphone because I don't really have anything to say on the topic. I'm not from Australia, and I don't know the political dynamics that play there.
I understand. I was more trying to get his opinion on the matter because we talked about it last week. Anyway,
it's war in general, though. It's just the whole thing of, like, in the Australian Army, we are one of the best fighting forces in the world, and to do that, it's a fucking hard job. And to go off and do the things that we do, it takes a very, very strong individual. That's the reason why we are so fucking good. And no, just don't start fucking giving people merit awards to try and do this kind of shit, because it just doesn't fucking work.
Ah, well, we're getting close to the hour-and-a-half mark. That's usually when we start wrapping things up here. So, was there any last-minute topics anybody wants to talk about? You're certainly welcome to stay around afterwards, but, you know, we reach the point where the video stops being interesting once it reaches about 2 hours.
No, I think this was great talk. I had a lot of fun. I wish the Aussie bastard had shown up sooner, because I think we had a lot of great conversation.
I can't get it right.
Oh, I'm glad you finally got a Discord working. You got to come by every week.
So, no, I mean, I think we have similar but slightly different opinions, and enough difference to where we could actually drive a meaningful conversation. So, yeah. The next time we do this, I would love to have him back on, personally.
About the same.
That's if everything works for me.
Right? Assuming, you know, the stars line up and fucking Jupiter explodes and Andromeda twists left instead of right, you know. Sorry, I'm being a little facetious here, but
no. I've had fucking heaps of trouble getting onto this.
But no, I actually look forward to talking to you again. I, however, do have to get going. But if you guys wanted to talk to me in the future, go ahead and follow me at Melissa Carlee. That's Karlee on Twitter. I am actually more active on Twitter than I am on Facebook or on, YouTube. So that's the best place to get a hold of me.
All right.
Just real quick. Everyone's going on about all this other stuff going on around the world. If anybody hasn't noticed yet, about 2 days ago in Sierra Leone, they had massive storms and some pretty decent mudslides. I think it
450 people.
Yeah, I think it killed about 6,000 people. So if everybody's hashtagging and shit, you know. put the Sierra Leone flag up on your Facebook page, all that kind of fucking crap. If you go to visit sierraleone.org, you might be able to find out a way if you want to try and help out, donate and shit like that. These poor blokes, like these poor cunts have fucking been through a hell of a lot and they fucking don't deserve it. And this is just another kick in the balls for them.
Ouch, yeah, I heard 450 in a mudslide, but a total 6,000, that's high, yeah.
I think it is. I can't remember whether that's the casualties all up or whether
Well,
that's
that might
the
be in
final
total.
count.
That might be in total. The mudslides alone were 450, but there was a lot more than that, as I recall. At any rate,
Yep.
and Kick, anything, you still there, or did you wander off?
At least showing yellow on mine.
Probably had to head out. It did get pretty late. At any rate, we're going to wrap it up here. This has been great. It's been real and it's been fun. And for once, hey, it's been real fun. So glad everybody could stop by. Any last goodbyes?
Uh,
That works for me.
Go home or go hard.
actually,
What? Thanks for your time and have a pleasant day.